Yeah, first, I'm really amazed. Axel, what a job. Like, look at all you people here. This is amazing to see this amount of enthusiasm for a really obscure berry that not very many people have ever heard about. So, but I've been president of Haskap Canada organization for a couple of years here now, and it's gone from a kind of a rarefied little deal to all of a sudden there's calls coming from all over the world. I think we have people coming to Haskap days from Tasmania that want to start growing Haskap there. I actually looked on the Google Maps and said, Australia, Tasmania, they'll never grow that down there, but I think they probably could because it's far enough south but to get cold there. Now, I'm not sure if I know how to do this or not. Okay. I'm an expatriate Scot. We emigrated here in 1962, and if there's one thing about Scots is they all want to have a wee bit of dirt to play around in, but I think my retirement project probably got carried away on me a little bit. I went from a few plants, and I've got 42 kilometers off them planted now, so. But everybody has to start somewhere. And this is where we started in 2008. That's sitting outside my house there, and these were all some nice plants. I forget what we've got there. There'll be indigo gems, some tundra, and borealis. Here we are. We'd heard that the best way to work with these things is in Japan they all grow them out for a year or two in the ground and then they transplant them. Well, that's what we'll do. First off, we tried digging them into the ground. We have really heavy clay soil in Saskatchewan, and it didn't work out very well. So we devised a little method, or this is our first kind of attempt at it, and we use a pressure 2-inch pump step down to a 5/8 hose, and then use the hydraulic pressure to squirt a hole in the ground, and then you get the plugs nicely down in there. We didn't use plastic mulch at this point because we thought, yeah, why would we have to do that after so here we are. These are the ones that we had planted. We planted, I think, those in June, early July, and this is just in the spring of 2009. Now, nobody knew at that point if there was any wind pollination at all in the Haskap. I kind of suspected there wasn't, and so did Bob, but so I thought, well, here, they're just starting to flower, let's try it. So I covered up 50 plants, and I thought, there's bound to be some wind pollination. Well, when we finally got around to looking to see if there was any berries on anything, there was this many berries. Well, no, I shouldn't say that, because they were this big. I mean, this big, about the size of a pinhead. So anyway, at that point, my brain goes, okay, whatever I do from now on, I have to do something to make life decent for bees. So every decision I made in my orchard from then on in, my first consideration is it good for the bees? Now, honeybees, I don't turn down any pollinators, and honeybees are not a native species. It's got to be 18 above, no wind, no rain, or they don't work. They sit in the hives. We're union bees. We're not working in that crap. You guys bring us sugar water, okay? Luckily, we have wild bees, so so what I've been trying to do is figure out ways, and now I'm actually working with the Royal Saskatchewan University and Museum, and we're in your handout there. You'll have a little 2-page thing from Ms. Danae Fryer, who's been running the project down there, and she's doing some excellent work in terms of, and she's also in Bob's greenhouse and figuring out just what happens to one pollen grain when it crawls into a stigma or whatever it does. And anyway, here we go. There's a little bit later on in the year, and you can see they've kind of all flowering out here, all flowered out already, and starting to put on shoots. So here's my little Kubota tractor. There's my son in there, showing off because hands-free driving. You should have seen the look on their face in Farm World in Conestoga when I went in there and I said, I'd like you to put a GPS controller on my 50-horse Kubota. And I hear this, some guy wants to put a GPS controller on his garden tractor. Is he nuts? Well, I was planning on putting 40 kilometers of Haskap plants down, and I'd done enough work, and my previous work was construction and building curbs and gutters and sidewalks, so I guess I had to take some of that technology that I use and put it back into farming. So yeah, to lay out that amount of stuff, you got to do it about 3 or 4 times, especially in our ground here. Our fella here, he says, you guys got angry dirt, really fertile, really heavy clay, 12 passes with a rototiller to get it fluffed up enough to use the plastic mulch. We'd already figured out that we got to do something. If we're going to go organic here, we have to have a strategy of dealing with weeds, because they like to grow too. You can't blame them, that's what they do. So we had taken and we planted all those trees in the fall, 2009, and we thought, hey, how much root mass can they put on? They wouldn't fit into a 3-gallon pot anymore. We had a bunch of 3-gallon pots, we dug them up and don't fit. So hauled them all over. You can imagine at this point we're thinking, this is way too much work. Couldn't dig. So we had GPS'd out and we'd done all I'm planning it at pea stubble there, so the pea stubble was a great thing to do because we had all that nitrogen fixed in there. So we went along, we put the plants all 5 feet apart because that's what we thought they should go. Realized later that of course if you're going to go on that kind of a scale, you don't want individual plants because then the stuff in between, all your berries drop down. So now we plant them about 2.5 to 3 feet apart and make a hedge, because a hedge works a lot better for a mechanical harvester. So put this down, drilled all these holes, and then we got a plastic mulch applicator from the PFRA when we still had a PFRA in Saskatchewan. For 100 years they gave us free trees and we thought it was a great thing, and now they've decided you guys don't need free trees, even though the plant probably does need free trees. But so anyway, we rolled this out over the top and came along with a knife, cut a hole down in them all, dug up the trees. These are the Smoky Lake tree planters. Now they're used to planting little evergreen plugs and doing forests, and I said, I'm planting trees, I need tree planters. Well, this wasn't really what they were used to doing, but they are used to working hard, and this was dirty hard work. Never going to do that one again. But they were a great bunch. I had them there. I think my wife was about crazy by the time we'd finished feeding 10 people for 2 weeks. And there you can see, I mean, we did stuff a few in there until we finally realized it wasn't worth trying to stuff them into the 3-gallon pots. We just stuck them into onto a trailer and hauled them over. And then later on in the year, I'm going to cover Canada gap and requirements. We didn't really have a problem. Saskatchewan deer don't like Haskap. I know that BC deer do, especially on the island. Those black-footed deer, they will eat anything. It's unbelievable. I mean, Haskap's going to be the most bitter tasting thing, and most animals go, bah, I'm not going to eat any more of that crap, but
you're talking the branches, right?
Yeah. The branches. So anyway, 2009 in the fall was when Saskatchewan changed. We were used to having 14 inches of rain in a year. We were classified as a semi-arid desert. Since the fall of 2009 in October, when we got 10 inches of rain, we've been getting 40 inches of rain every year. And our dirt, nothing's used to dealing with this amount of moisture. It's, the first year it was an anomaly. This is a once in 500 year occurrence. As of last year, this is the new norm, whatever that is. But anyway, I got a fella here and we we put the elk fence up, and we you know, made it for deer. I'll cover the Canada Gap thing, but you're not allowed to have deer poop in your orchard. I'll just give you a pre-warning for this afternoons. I know we've had sheep and goats and everything for forever, ever since humans have developed orchards. Oh, hey, the fruit's here. We've got grass. In fact, there's a special grass called orchard grass, not because it grows low and you don't have to mow it all the time, because it grows high, so when you put your sheep and goats in there, they get nice and fat, as well as from the fruit that's left over. But Canada Gap won't allow us ungulates pooping in our orchard anymore, and I'll explain why later. This will be something we're looking forward to. So in 2009, we decided we were going to try cutting, and nobody had really been doing much in terms of cutting with the Haskap before, so we didn't have very many plants. You could see what we had, and we took all of these cuttings off of there, and we took one bract and put them into a rooting hormone, got them in there, and they actually started coming out not too bad. And I think we got about 20,000 plants. Oh, we were so proud of ourselves. And we didn't quite deal with them correctly in the fall. The greenhouse there, the lady that ran it had gotten ill, and she left them up on the benches. Now, they're extremely hardy if you put them on the ground, because the ground actually, even in Saskatchewan, where we're reduced to 6 weeks of 40 below it sometimes, the ground never really gets any colder than about 4 to 9 degrees below Celsius. So the roots are fine at 4 to 9 below, but if you have them sitting up on a bench and it goes to 15 to 20 below, they freeze solid and they all die. So the next year we had 15,000 of those beautiful 20,000 trees are all dead. So over the years I've probably figured out more ways to kill Haskap than there is Haskap in the world. But I guess that's why I'm here, so I can help you guys so you don't end up making the same mistakes. This is the 915, the indigo gem. That was what, your 15th plant in the 9th row?
Yeah.
I still call them that because, you know, if you could run it on a computer program, it's a lot easier to go 915 than it is to type in indigo gem all the time. It doesn't fit the little boxes. Or maybe I don't know enough about spreadsheets. So we did have a few plants left over. We sold a few, and then we started planting, and that was when we decided from now on we're gonna go. So we had rented we bought a machine from a fellow down by Abbotsford. He was an ex CFL football player and a Seventh-day Adventist, so he was total vegan, and he grows really nice organic produce, and he developed this plastic mulch applicator. You can roll out the irrigation tape and plant all at the same time. We thought, ha! Wonderful thing. I'm going to plant this whole 40,000 plants in no time flat. So we got it all wired up. Took quite a bit. Of course, now we're into this 10 inches of rain on this really heavy clay. So to get the dirt fluffed up enough so you can use the plastic mulch applicator took about 12 to 13 passes with a rototiller, and then it would rain 8 inches. Pound it flat down into the ground. So we'd start again. We're getting really worried about this point. So that was when I panicked and we'd ordered this thing. We got it here. It didn't work in our dirt, so we had to rebuild the thing from the ground up just about. Went out, planted 1,200 trees in an hour, and then decided to hydrate it. Of course, it didn't rain the 10 inches at that point like it should have. Took 3 days to hydrate. There were some pretty sick-looking Haskap plants sitting in dry dirt for 3 days in Saskatchewan winds and dirt. So I don't know, some of you might have looked, if you look on Haskap planting on the internet, that obscure little video, the 1,200 plants that we planted there, has been viewed 12,000 times. We never did that again. Now here we are in 2010, and those were the plants that we had transplanted down there. We are getting a fair bit of weeds coming up in, but they're big enough plants here by this time. It's not a really big deal to have a few weeds. Dandelions, hey, it's a nice yellow flower and it's really good food for bees. As long as you knock it down before it becomes white and fluffy, as long as it's yellow, it's food for bees. No big deal. When the trees get big enough, a nice big thick taproot goes straight down. The plants kind of spread out that way. They don't really compete all that badly with each other. And once they're dead, then you've got this beautiful little compost heap of taproot underneath your Haskap to provide nutrition. Hey, that's a plug for dandelions. You thought you'd never hear that. Now, we're on top of a hill. There's never been water sitting in this part of this field. So we were doing this experiment to see how Haskap does in water. Now, like Bob says, it grows in wetlands, and so it's used to having really wet feet in the spring and being bone dry. But when you stick it under up to 2 feet of water 5 times a year, it'll drown. It's a plant. I got no oxygen, I'm giving up the ghost. So of course the next year after that we replanted because we thought, geez, we better have every spot filled here. And then the same thing happened. And after a while, hey, there's no percentage in this, so we'll just have some gaps here. That way, if your machine breaks down, you can get out and get out from the road. Some of my rows are half a kilometer long here. Now, here's the bottom end of the orchard. Looks, the way I staged the picture here. Where I'm standing, there's a 2-foot culvert. It took 6 weeks for that 15 acres of slough to drain out across underneath the road and get out of there. That's how much moisture we had. Because there's no carrying capacity left in Saskatchewan soils. We're just not used to having that kind of moisture. This is another aside. In 2010, we were supposed to do a Saskatchewan fruit growers. We got an adopt grant to do some micronutrient testing and some herbicide testing now. This is in a different location. It's down in my partner's yard down the hill because we're organic, of course, and we can't use any chemicals. But you can see it works. We planted these things. They were frozen plugs, like we do if we can. When we propagate, we freeze them in the freezer in bundles of 10 and keep them at -4. At -4, they're fine. As soon as they thaw out, stick them in the ground, they go. And we got them down far enough so you're past that 4 inches of the pre-emergent Casoron. Casoron's an old chemical that they've been using since the late 60s. They just banned it in England because it's so hard on waterways and stuff. But if you don't like weeding around the plants, and your plants are sort of established the next year, if you put the Casoron down right in the last thing of fall, or if you can get into your field, you can put it down and it will work. You can see that the volunteer willows and the other things, of course, being trees, it didn't get them, but it works if you're into that sort of a thing. And we went to the Calgary Food Expo in 2011 and set up a demonstration. We had a little bit of Haskap, a few little jars of jam on the table there that we had made up. I'm not sure how good those are going to be because they were made up in 2011, but I'm expecting, I tasted some and it's okay, but it is 4 years old or 5 years old here now, so it's more a testament to the antioxidant qualities of the Haskap than it's not really a good representation of Haskap topping anymore, I don't think. We were putting the cart before the horse. We had no product. So we went there, we had enough product and people were tasting it and everybody was just, wow, is this ever good? This is great stuff. Can we buy any? No, we don't have any. So that was a you have to do the marketing, but it is a bit of a difficulty if you go out and do some marketing and you don't have anything to give anybody. No, you can't even taste it. And here we are in April 2012, and again, after all the rain. In the fall of 2011, it actually dried up enough that we could finish our elk fence all the way around. Of course, it was underwater again in the spring.